I received an email a little while ago that I probably should not be getting. It came from the HQ boards, somebody complaining about profanity on the boards.
Oh, awesome. I get those all the time. Oh, yeah, you're probably still buried in the moderator list
I
from 15
guess
years
so,
ago.
okay. I hadn't seen one of those in like ages, but I just got one.
I used to get those too, yeah.
I mean, I read the board, I don't recall any profanity.
I've
But
not
you
looked
weren't
at the
in
board
the
the last couple
profanity,
days.
so.
No, I mean, I read through the threads though.
No, I mean, I looked at the incident.
I got a flag report. Yeah, somebody hit the flag button. He must still be on that list, right? Oh, no, it's the Giants off-season threat has gone awry.
Oh, no, okay, that's one I don't read.
I mean, it was really innocuous, but he dropped an F-bomb, so.
You remember years ago when the forums were still pretty new, some guy wrote in a big long anecdotish sort of thing about he was hanging out with some pitcher, a Giants pitcher or something, and he was talking about all these girls that they were bringing into this motel room and having this big orgy. And then orgy is
I was going to say, is that how you say it?
whatever, you think it would be with a hard G for obvious
Well,
reasons.
How are we not recording this? Come on.
The stream is, we're ready to go.
Sorry, is this a dirty old man?
I had a shower yesterday, so.
Yeah, that's terrible. Can I get a copy of that? Kidding.
This hasn't worked today, but the wireless has been fine.
That hasn't worked. So this place is annoying me this week. Okay, as long as the wireless is fine.
Wireless has been
Okay.
no issues at all.
Okay.
So much better than last year.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Live stream is going.
Okay. On your cue, PD.
Yeah, I know, but my
Okay.
screen just locked up,
Oh, wait.
so I have to reboot this idiot machine. It's been like kind of a last couple of days. I guess this will-
Start without me if you need to.
I've got the three questions in mind. I need to block the table.
Level? Okay,
Give it to me again real quick, just so.
sure, make sure I'm oriented like I'm gonna be for this exercise.
I'm gonna be disoriented.
Okay, level, this is me,
Yep.
sibilance. Harkening back to my old rock and roll days. Okay, so, this. Here we go.
I was telling Ray we're at a ball game the other night, and we got Adler and Kreutzer as my proof. Guy walks up to me and goes, "You Ray Murphy?" I'm like, no. He's like, I hear you're talking HQ, and I've heard you on the radio. So, oh, well, it's probably you heard Ray and I together. I'm the other one. But it's like, yeah, well, people, it was kind of fun. If she said yes, I guess. No, I was a good guy.
Okay.
I don't know if we sound alike. I mean,
Not really.
he talked a little bit faster. We're from Boston, but neither of us have an accent. So I don't know, whatever.
Ray's from New York, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what part, though. You're from Queens, aren't you?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we're just gonna start without him?
That's what he said.
Oh, okay. All right, let me know.
Yep.
Where will Trey Savage go in next year's drafts? And what will we do about AI in fantasy baseball? I'll ask Ron Chandler, Ray Murphy when he shows up, Todd Zola, and Alex Becky next on a special First Pitch Arizona Roundtable edition of Baseball HQ Radio live from Phoenix. This is the part where the music's playing. And welcome to Baseball HQ Radio for Saturday, November the 8th. I am your host, Patrick David, and we do have another great First Pitch Arizona Roundtable edition for you. In part one, Ron, Ray, Todd, Alex, and I will talk about the record-setting playoffs of Toronto right-hander Trey Savage. Then in part two, we'll talk about the increasing role of artificial intelligence in fantasy baseball and what to think about that as we look down the road. And in part three, we'll talk about the rules. When do you change them? When do you not change them? Why do you change them? And what fantasy baseballs do we think need changing? It's a very big First Pitch Arizona Roundtable edition. Hey, what do you say? We're live in Phoenix. And we are going to talk some baseball. And to get the ball rolling, let's meet our experts live from Phoenix and in front of a live studio audience. First, hitting leadoff, a man who needs no introduction. Second,
Well played.
of course, to my immediate right is Ron Chandler, the founder of BaseballHQ.com, the creator of Baseball HQ Radio, and a great friend of the show and of me and all of us here. It's great to have you, Ron.
Thanks, Patrick. It's always great to be on Baseball HQ Radio.
Ray Murphy is here. He had to step away to look after.
here he
He's now
comes.
stepping lively back. He's just in time. Ray, welcome to the show.
Darn glad to be here. Been here all along. What are you talking about?
Theater of the mind. Around the corner from Ray is Baseball HQ frequent flyer commentator Alex Becky. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
And finally, it wouldn't be a Baseball HQ Roundtable edition without Todd Zola from Masters Ball, ESPN, and SiriusXM. Todd, welcome back to Baseball HQ Radio.
Great to be here. Now, you said in front of a live audience. Some of us have a live audience behind us.
Lucky us.
I also have to pick a nit that the table is rectangular.
Oh,
Oh, it's not a round table.
I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, what wit. Certainly not the Algonquin Roundtable, I'll say that. All right, so the first inning of this First Pitch Arizona Roundtable edition, part one of our discussion, focusing on Trey Savage of the Blue Jays. The breakout star of the 2025 World Series set a rookie record with 12 strikeouts in Game 5 and had 34 strikeouts for the playoffs, both records. He also had 16 strikeouts in 14 innings in 3 major league starts in September. This guy can strike guys out. Troy Savage looks like he's going to be a linchpin in Jays rotations for the next several seasons, but we're at a fantasy baseball conference. That's what we're talking about. So I'll start by asking, if you were drafting it this week, and some people are here at First Pitch Arizona, where would you target Trey Savage, and do you think you would get him at that spot? Ron?
Yeah, you know, I'm one of these drafters who likes to see a little bit larger sample size before I go jumping in, waist deep in these waters. And it's clear that that this guy, I pronounce his name, Yes Savage. I was wondering, Yes Savage, Savage.
Well,
Anyway.
earlier in the year, Ray and I were talking about him, and somehow we got to Yes Savage.
Yes Savage. He's French. I like that.
I don't think he is.
No,
Yes,
come on,
Indiana.
Savage. Yes, Savage. Yeah, okay. Okay, my biggest thing with this young pitcher, he's clearly very talented and striking out a ton of batters in his first professional season. However, he started out in low A ball in Dunedin and was there for 33 innings. Then they promoted him to high A, where he was 17 innings there. Then he got promoted to double A, where he was there for 30 innings. In triple A, where he was there for 17 innings before being promoted to Toronto, where he was there for 14 innings. At no stop during the season was he there long enough for the opposition to be able to figure him out and try to adjust to the competition. And given that he's never had to do that, I wonder, once opposing batters start seeing him on a consistent basis, well, they'll be able to figure him out more. So I'm very risk averse when it comes to players like this. So, you know, if bidding stuff is in the mid-teens or the low teens, maybe I'm in it. But like yesterday in the XFL, it went for like $20.
And he's a minor league contract,
Yeah.
which probably doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, actually, Andy Andres got him, and for 20, and I said, you know, he's a +3 player, and he didn't even know.
Right.
So yeah. So I don't know. I want to see more.
So where do you think he'll go, generally speaking?
He's going to go in the high teens easily. He'll go in the top 6 or 7 rounds. You know, people love these shiny new pennies, and after what he did in the postseason and, you know, his first pro year, you know, everybody wants to be in on that.
Well, he went climbing through the minor leagues, as Ron said, very quickly. Maybe you might think that his father owned the organization or something, but he's just a good pitcher. His dad's a cool guy. They showed him a lot on the TV coverage of the playoffs when he was pitching. His dad's living and dying like crazy. Ray, what do you think of Trey Savage?
I'm probably going to be out on him. Ron's probably got the value right. I looked at, I just pulled up the NFBC ADP, and he's sitting at around 10 valuation now. His ADP is right around 150. That doesn't sound horrible. You know, Ron just mentioned 6 or 7 a minute ago, and I think I was just looking at this for the first time. I'm with you, Ron. I thought it might actually be a little bit higher. But then you start looking around at the pitchers around him on the ADP list, and I'd rather have all these guys instead of him. You know, you're talking about Ryan Pepio and Sandy Alcantara, Bubba Chandler, guys Tanner Bybee, to Ron's point, guys with, you know, actual track records. You know, if I'm in round 10, even if I'm interested in Savage, I'm going to have trouble taking him over those other guys. But the other thing I was trying to remember, Ron, is can you think of, back in the old days when you were running HQ, I always used to write an article about guys whose fantasy value changed in the postseason. And I can't, the only one I can remember that's this dramatic is a very different position, but the only other one that comes to mind for me is K-Rod, when he came up as a rookie and you know, with the Angels in like 2002 and had, you know, was basically a September call-up, but then, you know, mowed down the entire postseason. Everybody knew he was going to be the Angels closer the next year.
More recently, Evan Carter.
Oh, there's a good one. Sure. Yeah.
Another hitter is Randy Rosarena. Was a couple years back, but he, you know.
See, I'm just trying to look cool.
It brought up
somebody out 25 years ago.
It brought up the question about should we incorporate players in the playoffs numbers when we do projections. In Rosarena, it was just so over the top. And the time fused back, I was a little more stringent. No, we shouldn't, because it's not going to, the opponent's not going to match out. It's not fair that this guy gets the playoffs and this guy doesn't. But yet he still performed that. So with Savage, 28 innings in the playoffs. So if anything else, I may give him some more innings.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'm going to change the rate stats because of 28, you know, play. You mentioned getting used to him. TrackJet couldn't even simulate him. For those that don't know, TrackJet's this big machine that can imitate all the different motions, literally program it, and you can say, you know, show me Sonny Gray, and you take batting practice against a robot throwing Sonny Gray. So you couldn't even get those reps against your Savage. I bet you over the winter they code it, but you know that's, you know, as we know, all gimmicky pitchers. Can you call it a gimmick? Not really a gimmick. Unique. You know, the unicorn type motions and deliveries and release points, eventually, and this is to your point, eventually you see it more than once and you have a better chance of catching up to it. I don't know if we had it, what here does it matter? You're out of
No,
order.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, wrap up.
So the other thing, you know, if you ask, you know, Alex Rodriguez, he's a good pitcher, but when some of the players some of the announcers and that you trust more about pitching, they picked him, you know, well, I mean, his command within the zone, he throws 2 pitches and doesn't, they picked it apart a little bit more. So I'm a little more like you guys. I don't know that we're going to have anybody at this table that's go, I want him. But I mean, if I can stream him, I want him, but I'm not going to get him at a streaming cost.
It depends on the quality of your league. And when Ron said, you know, all through the minors, he hasn't given anybody a chance to see him in an extended way to adjust. But I will say that he pitched against the Dodgers twice, and a great baseball team, and he seemed to look all right even the 5th, 6th times through the order.
Dodgers weren't hitting the entire postseason.
But they're still good hitters.
Yeah.
They're professional hitters. Alex, where are you putting Trey Savage in your draft plan for next year?
Well, I've made this mistake plenty of times before. We were sitting at this table last year. I recommended Jackson Jobe. I was really high on Roki Sasaki as one of my frequent flyers from the year prior. I had Trey Yesavage as my frequent flyer from, I believe, June 27th, talking about his delivery and the uniqueness that Todd brought up. So I may be a little bit more excited about him that way and tend to push him because basically from my training at Baseball HQ, we've talked about how once you have a skill or show a skill, you own it. But I totally agree with the fact that scouting will catch up. The numbers will probably regress. He won't be as dominant or as unhittable, and assuming that he doesn't have a lot of experience, assuming that he doesn't get injured like Jackson Jobe last year, I think there's a lot of value to be had. But when I approach a draft like this, depending on a draft or an auction, the most important factor for me is reading the room, getting an idea of where everybody else would likely draft him and what his value would be based upon that. So I did check with AI, with a number of the drafters in here, and they laid out all of your drafting strategies. And the general consensus, I won't go through each one individually.
God bless you.
But
All right, when am I gonna take them?
let's see.
Oh, boy.
Ron Chandler would likely draft Trey Yesavage in the middle rounds 8 to 12 of 2026 Tout Wars, as a potential risk-reward pick. His philosophy is targeting specific undervalued player types, focusing on talent on upside, inconsistency and risk, and it goes on and on with the draft landscape. And
I'm glad you're not going on and on.
yeah, so, but you get an idea of how, and the general consensus in here is that from AI, Patrick would tend to take him higher than the rest of the group. So if I'm playing in a room with Patrick or drafting with Patrick, I would most likely draft him a little bit higher and push him a little bit more. Based upon an informal poll at lunch with some of the attendees, they were looking at the 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds to look for him. So now they probably wouldn't tell me that, but if I was in a league with them, I'd probably be looking around 4 or 5 to know that I got him if I liked him. But on the other hand, if I'm playing in a round with you guys, I would be much more conservative and probably be looking at, round 12, round 13, something like that if he falls.
Alex,
So,
would you actually draft him in the 4th round?
would I? Well, based upon last year, I drafted Jackson Jobe pretty high, and that worked out pretty poorly. So,
Logan Webb is a sixth rounder.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
Okay, just a second, guys. Okay, shut it down. AI took over the podcast.
Let me wrap with a quick Trey Yesavage story. Since our minor league expert, Chris Blessing, couldn't join us this week for the conference, I get to throw him under the bus on the podcast instead.
Fun times.
So, back in September when Brent was whipping up the covers for our books this year, we have Cal Raleigh on the cover of The Forecaster and Bryce Eldridge on the cover of the Minor League Analyst. Brent's original draft for the cover of the Minor League Analyst was a really cool Trey Yesavage picture with him like in mid motion, like coming directly over the top, like he does, and the arm is cut out in the cover as we do on the book. I thought it was a really cool picture. And Brent had this mocked up. He's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this." He sent it to Chris Blessing in mid-September, mind you, and Chris said, "Yeah, cool picture, but I don't know if Yesavage is a big enough prospect for the cover of the book. I suggest we go to Bryce Eldridge." Takes that did not age well in the last 6 weeks.
Well, for what it's worth, I think I would target him sometime in round 9 or 10. And it might depend, I think, on what my pitching looked like up till then. If I started with a Tariq Skubal type of start, I might be more willing to take the risk on Yesavage. But if I didn't get my first starter till late 2nd round, probably I'm going to be a little more risk averse. It always changes. That's why AI will never take over our great game.
does the Canadian factor come into play with that?
He's not Canadian.
Well, he's playing in Toronto.
I wonder if that factored in with AI though.
Yeah, I think 50% of the people in Toronto were born outside of Canada, so it's hard to say. We did have a Canadian player on the team though this year. Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Oh, right.
Born
sure.
in Montreal.
Born in Montreal.
Okay, topic number 2. On Friday, here at First Pitch Arizona, we had 2 sessions on artificial intelligence in fantasy baseball. Ray, you hosted one of the AI sessions, and you told us you've been pretty active yourself using AI for your fantasy baseball activities. So why don't you start us off and give us your idea of how AI is going to fit into the fantasy baseball world in the near term, and then looking farther down the road, say the next 2 years and the next 10 years.
You know, it's been a hot topic of conversation this weekend, and those are really good questions. If there's one thing I take away from this weekend is that we all have more questions than answers right now. There are a lot of different perspectives. There are a lot of different ways to use it. I gave my sort of personal spiel in the session I hosted last night. For me, it's about efficiency and saving time, and if I can have it do things for me that either I'm not good at or I find tedious, that I can then free up 15 minutes or whatever to go do something more productive, still in the baseball space. I created I gave the example that Ron was kind enough to share with me some data from his intro in the forecaster that he's been tracking for a number of years that I wanted to use for a different session here this weekend. And Ron sent me, formatted perfectly for a book, text-based tables, et cetera, and I just dropped it in AI and it put out these beautiful multicolored graphic charts and turned it into a slideshow for me that saved me, saved me a bunch of time that I would have spent trying to produce those same slides, and B, that sort of creative graphical design is not a gene I have. So not only did it save me time, but the product was better than I ever would have gotten it to myself anyway. So those are kind of the opportunities I look for, like, hey, what do I not have time for, / what am I not good at that this thing can be better than me for? Other people, have different perspectives about it. And that's even before you get into the ethical / big brother / is this thing going to take the human element out of all of those, all of those sort of big think questions that we get to bat around over lunch and stuff out here. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert and have all the answers to all of those. I'm just trying to save myself a few minutes here and there.
No, you could have used AI to ask the question.
Right.
You could have found out what AI thinks.
Hey AI, tell me how exactly do you plan to make me obsolete?
It's good to know. Todd, what do you think? I mean, this AI business is certainly on the way, and there's limited things we can do to stop it, I guess. But what do you think is going to be the impact?
I'm thinking more about it from the content producer's angle than I am the helping as be a fantasy manager. I mean, this is my job, it's my hobby, it's all rolled into one. I may not need to save the 15 minutes that Ray talked about as much as some other people, because it is my job, this, that, and the other thing. So I'm kind of looking at it, and I've just been told that a magazine I write is going to be edited by AI. I need to edit it too, but the next guy it's not going to be the next editor, it's going to be AI.
Wouldn't I want that the other direction, like AI first?
It's going to come back.
Okay.
It'll come back. Yeah, it will come back. But if that saves time, that's wonderful. It catches errors, but I can if it's able to edit and fact check, that's great as a writer, because I think this, I know HQ is an exception. Unfortunately, they should be the rule. But there's a lot of stuff out there that gets posted and not edited, right? Just to get it up there quick. I know you guys do it. You guys edit. I know, and people I work for edit, but it's not always the case. Would love to be able to. All right, I got this great idea, but is it my idea, or has other people written about this? So you can, just Google it, but it's a more focused search engine, and maybe it's a lot. I'll do that. Wait a minute, I wrote about that 15 years ago, but it happened once. So I think, as a number of people have said, as much as we aren't looking forward to it, it's coming. So you got to figure out a way to embrace it. Someone else will. Ron,
you spoke on Friday about an experience you had with AI, and you were somewhat surprised and impressed.
I've got so many stories. You talk about, Todd, how it's coming and we have to deal with it. My personal life, my daughter is in the music industry, and she just got hired by OpenAI to help ChatGPT write better song lyrics. And I said to her, I said, you know, you're putting yourself out of business. And she's like, it's coming whether we like it or not, so might as well hop on the bandwagon. And they're paying her very, very well. So for however long she has this gig, she's gonna, you know, ride it and then figure out and pivot afterwards. And I think we're gonna be faced with a lot of those decisions down the line too. But for me, right now, AI, I'm kind of looking at it like Wikipedia. You know, I go to it to find some information, but I've got to vet everything because I don't believe everything that it's spitting out. And there's something that a piece of research I was doing for the Forecaster introduction that kind of highlights this. So I write a little bit about how the power trends are changing in Major League Baseball. And last year, the barrel rate was the highest it's ever been during the StatCast era. Yet the home run to fly ball rate has been going down, and that didn't seem to make logical sense to me. So I thought, well, maybe it's the balls that have changed, this and that. So I figured, let me ask AI and let it spit out a bunch of possible reasons. And one of the reasons it spit out was that it said some humidors might be overcompensating for humidity in warmer climates, reducing the ball carry. And I thought to myself, well, that's interesting, but I've never seen anything about that. So I followed up with ChatGPT and I said, well, where's the evidence? Give me some links. And this is the verbatim reply it gave me. That's a sharp question. The short answer is there is no definitive consensus study that proves over-normalized humidors in warm climates reduce carry. But there is suggestive theoretical and experimental work that implies humidors could influence baseball aerodynamics in ways that could support such a claim. And I thought to myself, what do I do with this? You know, and it's, first of all, to say that's a sharp question, that's the first time I got attitude back from a machine. And if that's what we're looking ahead to, I think we need to start playing a defense now before they take over. But yeah, so I you know, from that aspect, I'm very dubious about using it for my research work. Now, one more story?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I just finished writing a book. It's called Fantasy Reconstructed, and it's out now as an ebook. The paperback's coming out soon. But I've already started to have ideas for a new book, and for this new book, it's on a topic that I'm very, very interested in and have been interested for a while, but I don't have a lot of expertise in. And under normal circumstances, I'd probably spend the next year reading a bunch of books and source material, trying to get up to speed so I could write intelligently about it. But I figured, all right, let me go to ChatGPT and ask for a potential outline for such a book. And so I detailed what I was trying to do, and it spit out an outline that was phenomenal. And as ChatGPT tends to do, after they do their work, at the very bottom they say, would you like me to let me take another step. And this said, would you like me to do a sample chapter treatment? And I thought, all right, I mean, I'm not even near along those lines yet, but go ahead, do a sample chapter treatment. And what it spit out was also phenomenal. And at the end of that, it said, would you like me to write a sample chapter? And at that point, I had to draw the line, but I'm at an ethical impasse here, because if I were to follow this rabbit hole down, I could probably have this book out by Christmas. And that's not what I want to do, but I could. And it's an ethical line that I'm really having a problem with now. And it's the path we're going down. These are the types of decisions that we have to make.
When in theory, someone may have the same idea as you and not have such good principles and have a book out by December, and your book is, no, I don't want Chandler's book, I got this other one.
Well, you notice I didn't tell you what the topic
Well,
was.
I know, but someone else may happen upon that topic.
Yeah.
And it's about humidors, I assume.
It is not about humidors, but now you've given me an idea for another book.
But it's interesting. So we've talked about this throughout the weekend, Ron, and I haven't directly had the opportunity to ask you this question, but I'll do it now. So you talk about the spot where you needed to draw the line, et cetera. But a lot of what I read, what I hear about industries, skill sets, types of workers that are the most pushing back against AI are content creators. But both in the example of your daughter earlier and you yourself, like you neither one of you clearly have the hard nope sort of answer. Like, no, I am the only one who can carve this book into stone tablets and distribute it onto the market. But I mean, I think it's a more. I think your perspective is a more enlightened one in the sense of, I think this train has left the station and digging your heels in is not a productive answer, much like your daughter was saying earlier. But like, is there something, putting aside less ethically, like, is there, and more like personally, like your talents, your skills, is there some part of this that like offends you too?
Gosh, I wish I could say it does, but I'm fascinated by it
Yeah.
because if ChatGPT hadn't spit out something that was just, first of all, it knows my voice because it has access to all my past writings, so it's writing for me, and that's scary too. That's real scary. But the content that it was producing was good. It was the type of stuff that I would write. I feel like I'm cheating.
Alex?
Yeah.
Can I ask the panel something quick? First of all, I want to respond to Ron earlier. No, I wouldn't draft Trey Savage at the fourth round.
You were
Now that we get down
you
the
were
way.
thinking about it for 10 minutes.
Well, I just had to look around to make sure there was no way in my leagues here. I'd love them to think that I would. Second of all, I have a question for everybody. Based upon the discussions earlier this weekend, we've had a lot of debates over the years about players using steroids and performance-enhancing drugs. Is this a parallel between steroids, I mean, for writers and for players and for managers and even in the betting arena? Could this tool, if improperly used, fit within that category, and should there be consequences?
And you can guarantee it's going to be improperly used. I'll just say that. I mean,
Well-
steroids are medicine, but there's a cash angle somewhere somebody's going to take.
Well, I mean, any one of these analogies, you can always pick them apart. Steroids are illegal, but some of this would be illegal, I would think. Copyright and
It's plagiarism
Yeah,
to some extent. If I
Yeah.
knew
But
the
you never
source
know
of
from where. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
that's it. You don't know from
who's the victim? There's unquestionably a victim because this thing doesn't invent the content. That
Right.
it's sourcing it from somewhere. And doesn't tell you where. But then who's the aggrieved party? I mean, it's not that they don't exist. It's just that they're nameless.
I don't know, that it might be the humidor sounded kind of invented to me. Proof? No, I don't
Well-
actually have proof.
well, I don't think that AI can discern a Ron Chandler written piece from a Joe Schmo written piece. It just sees the information, and I think it may treat it all as equal. I mean, I don't know.
No, I could actually say right in my voice, and it will dig
Well,
through.
but when it reads your voice, when it reads this piece, and it reads these two different these both touch on the same topic. I wonder if it puts more weight on yours. Can it tell that you're more important, or whatever way you want to put it? Can we tell your opinion should be varied more than this? Some guy on a podcast says something, and you say something on HQ Radio. Which will AI value more?
From a content perspective, it's drawing from all different sources, but from what I understand, it takes all these various contents and puts it all together, and then it looks at my style of writing from past writings,
right.
and then re-engineers it into something that looks like I would have written.
Right, so I'm trying to, so silly examples here. Ariel Cohen with his ATC, he uses many different sources, but he weights them differently based on which source is better at this. And I wonder if AI weights its sources to come up with the and then puts it into your voice. But I wonder if the advice that they get, the message that they give, somehow scales the different inputs for it. If it considers all the inputs equal, or if it somehow is able to tell. If it can write in your voice, it can probably understand. Probably there's enough out there that probably go, well, this guy must be pretty good because it's all this stuff out there. I wonder, maybe different AIs do different things, or maybe that's the direction they're moving. I
I
don't
think
know.
a lot of it would depend on what you told it to do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put into the prompt and give my own writing that you can identify more weight in your consideration when you're balancing the various sources that you have. You know what this sounds like? It sounds like a ghostwriter for a celebrity autobiography that's written by somebody else. And those are the people who are going to be first out of work, I think, because all the celebrity has to do is just say, go read People magazine for the last 5 years and dummy up something that's 125 pages long. I have a friend, I told this story last night in Ray's session. He's 92 years old. He's a astrophysicist of great renown. He worked with Niels Bohr. He worked with Albert Einstein. And this is the part that blows me away. He wrote his own autobiography, not with AI. He attended Cambridge University and got a PhD. It was his first degree. They let him in the PhD program without any previous education. He was an artist before that. And Niels Bohr got him into Cambridge. But anyhow, he's in a book club with me, and we were talking about AI because we'd read a book that had AI implications. And in his astrophysics work, he told us about using ChatGPT 5, which at the time was the most advanced one. And he works in a situation where there's a billionaire paying the bill, so there's absolutely no cost impediment whatsoever. And so he gets all of these AI things to do these incredibly complicated math problems that used to be done by graduate students. And he said, take the graduate students 3 months, takes this thing 5 days. And they all all the computers come up with the same answer. So he's very confident that there's a result. And one of the ladies at the table said, well, how long is it before they don't need you? And he laughed and he said, we were all expecting 10 years, 20 years, never. He said, 18 months. Because all they need me for now is to write the questions, because they're not smart enough to understand what the next step is intellectually. But he said they will be. There's no question about it. And I think that's going to follow through in every area of society, including fantasy baseball and fantasy sports. I can't see how it doesn't happen, but I wonder as it happens, and this is an argument that we had in Ray's session as well, is the fantasy game moving away from its roots? When I started in it, I felt like it was a test of acumen about teams and players and stats and those kind of things, and team management skills. And from what I heard in Ray's session, it sounds like AI is a pretty decent tool for all of those things automatically for you. And while I don't think any of us would rely on it, anybody who wants to get in, especially to a cash game, might think, you know what, this is a possibility. Alex, what do you think about the possibility that we're just losing touch with the roots of the game?
I think that there could be an argument made that we're losing touch with the roots of the game. I think the same argument could have been made when more publications entered the arena, when the internet came in. I think it really comes down to how you interpret what the things that AI can bring. I think all of us in here have some concerns about AI, and that's been brought up in a lot of these sessions. But I think there's some things that are incredibly exciting about the possibilities with this, beyond just spending hours, what you used to spend hours for every week in checking lineups, rosters, other teams' rosters, etc. All of that can be done in seconds. But one of the things that happens with AI, I think one of the greatest barriers to entry to fantasy sports, especially baseball, has been the fear of looking stupid, even in trades. But also, if you're playing in certain fantasy leagues, among your friends, among experts, whatever that is, you're going to be scared that you're making bad decisions. And there's a lot of intellectual capital there, bragging rights, just like chess and just like some of these other things. That's one of the reasons why I think we enjoy it so much. But on the other hand, I think AI has the ability to lower those barriers. I think AI also has the ability to provide personalized recommendations, and we're seeing it on other platforms. I mean, even ESPN, for example, fantasy football, they have Watson, which will tell you when you look at a player that this player will not help your team or will significantly help your team. This player projects this many points, is owned by this many teams, and it allows you theoretically to make better decisions. Now, it won't allow you to draft Trey Savage in the 4th round, but it will allow you to reevaluate different possibilities. And I hope that everybody else can kind of weigh in on this too. But I think the biggest thing it had, even though we're seeing the fears come out right now, I think the biggest opportunity is taking away fear in the future.
I thought it was interesting that you said they're afraid of looking dumb and they want to get bragging rights. But can you actually have bragging rights about making a decision or a move that you didn't actually make? I mean, you're plagiarizing at that point. You're plagiarizing the AI, which is plagiarizing somebody else. So maybe the AI should be thought of as a broker of plagiarism, providing
It's an ethical
information.
conundrum, but I think people are more, as we go on, I see people more willing to take that step because it's a tool that's there. I mean, you're talking about the roots of the game. I think when this game started in the 1980s, the biggest challenge was finding information, to what Alex was saying. And once the internet came, that was taken away. So now the biggest challenge became playing the game theory, things along those lines. Now with AI, you could ask it, you could throw in all your league rosters and say, give me a list of 10 different trade opportunities I might have, and it'll do that. And now you've taken up to another level. So from this point, I think we need to start thinking about playing a different game. What does the game become once AI is basically doing all of this for us and people are willing to let it do all of this for us? So what's the next level of fantasy sports?
I have
think
this
is the next question.
image in my head of getting in touch with the guy and say, I have an idea for a trade. And he'd say, yeah, have your AI call my AI.
See what they can work out, yeah.
Maybe as a parallel, just to add on to what Ron said, we've had this debate in Major League Baseball too, where you see the roots being changed somewhat, getting away from the roots. The American League playing the National League in the World Series, moving to interleague play, some of the changes they made with the pitch clock, that's not part of the roots. But yet the roots of the overall game are there. I think everything's changed, whether everybody realizes it or not. Over the past year or two, everything has changed with this game. We are playing a new game, whether we like it or not. So the question is, how do we embrace it, and how do we interpret what the vast amounts of data that we're getting?
Todd.
I don't know. No, I mean, there's so many things are going through my head right now in that the whole, I mean, it draws on inputs. But if we stop writing, then it's going to have nothing to draw on. But now we have an opening. Now we come up, you got to figure out, if this is where it stops, you got to figure out the next, but now you write about it, so now that's out there. So it may not be out as fast, but it's still out there. Playing the game, if you try to be faster than the information, now we're into a daily game, and then it's just a game of hard work, which is nothing wrong with hard work, but it's not as much about knowing players and values and game strategies and things to that nature. So I don't know, the whole idea about being more willing. I think, as the older generation gets even older and the younger generation comes up, and this is the way of the world, they're not going to have as many qualms about letting AI do the work, because that's the way it's done. Right. That's the way it's done now. Right. So I think, we eventually that's what it's going to turn to that. So I don't know. It's already involved in the gambling aspect. It's, I want to do a strikeout prop, and so look at the park and the umpire and things that we would do anyway. But again, 5 minutes versus a half an hour, and you come to the same conclusion. Going to bet under on this guy. So the answer isn't going to props, or I don't know. It's
you'll be able to make 10 bets instead of one in the same amount of time.
There you go. So I come from a science, and part of what I was thinking 10 minutes was, man, I wonder how this is being used in the science industry. We've always said, if everybody trying to cure cancer got together and not were competitive and got in a room and put all the information together, I'll bet they could cure it. Well, now you have that ability. There's songwriting. I don't know a lot about music, but whoever writes the lyrics gets paid a whole lot of money. Mm-hmm. So you're not asking ChatGPT. In theory, your daughter, it's not teaching it ChatGPT to write. It's teaching it to help somebody write better lyrics.
Yes.
But at some point, they're going to say, ChatGPT, write me some lyrics.
Yeah.
And that's so that's not what it's like. That's when the robot takes over. Mm-hmm. So someone's going to be paid a lot of money to write the lyrics, and it's going to be written by ChatGPT. Who's going to know? I don't know.
I got news for you. My daughter gave my wife Spotify a playlist, and she said, "Tell me what you think of this." My wife really liked it. It was right in her groove, and it was entirely AI. The lyrics, the music, everything was produced by AI and put together. And apparently, Spotify's business model is that that's going to be increasingly, because then they get all the money. They don't have to pay because it's their work product because they're paying the AI. But I was also thinking about something that Alex said, which is when I was dabbling in DFS, I used to pay a subscription to a guy at a site. I went to that site because they had that guy, and he's a very successful DFS player, and it just suddenly hit me. I was using AI because it was his intelligence that I was absorbing, and I wasn't really adjusting it. He said, tonight a really good play is,
Trey Savage.
against Atlanta or whatever, and I would just do what he said. That was, so it's not new.
But that's a great example of, somebody made the point in the session last night that like what this thing can do for a lot of people. In your example is a good one. It can raise the floor to a certain level, right? Like I barely play fantasy football. I play in one league with my brother-in-law. Is the AI thing in the ESPN draft room helpful for me because I don't know jack about football? Absolutely. It's raising my floor from guy who knows nothing to at least knows to accept what AI told it to do.
Not a big step.
Which is not a big step, but it's a step, right? And to Alex's point, that's probably a league where, given my lack of knowledge and competing against family members, I do actually care about not embarrassing myself. So I will avail myself of these tools. But in our games, where we're theoretically playing them at a much higher level, Ron talks about going back to the 80s, and in my mind, there's an evolution of this game in the last 40 plus years. From at first, it was about proving you know more about baseball, right? Mm-hmm. And then sort of the explosion of the internet and the information that just grows by orders of magnitude. Now there's no real information advantage, and now it's a game of economics and draft strategy and resource allocation, right? And maybe what we're saying here is we're coming to the end of that continuum, and the next phase is going to be about some other advantage. And I think at some point what you get at is, in my mind, what we're converging toward is like you're competing against the other 10, 12, 15 guys at the table. And if they're all using some version of AI tool, that just means there's some other way that you pivot how you play. Going to your DFS example, PD, if some DFS lineup tout turns out to be the best one, whether a real brain or an artificial one, and everyone's using it, well, even if he's the best one, he probably doesn't win every day. So now the opportunity is to go against his picks, and even if he wins 60% of the time, on the days that he's wrong or the thing that he fades, you go after that. And it's a game theory. It's just another evolution of game theory. And to Alex's point, like we're not playing the same game that people played in 1982 when this got off the ground. And it's not going to stay static. It's I think we're just kind of looking over the horizon at the next way this evolves. And if you think about it that way, maybe it's a little less scary and end times and more like, okay, this game's been changing for 40 years and it will continue to change.
Yeah, but I think the changes now are going to be big. I mean, we're looking at the advancement of AI happening on a month-by-month basis, things going. I mean, and here we're in 2025. I'm thinking, what is fantasy sports going to look like in 2027? I mean,
right. It's not. I'm not talking about evolution over the next 40 years.
No.
The next 40 days.
Yeah.
In AI times.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, if I could add something too, I think one of the common themes here is talking about it appears right now, whether this is the case or not, that there's a lack of guardrails in terms of what you were mentioning on how to use it in terms of a book and those sorts of things. And I think those are evolving too, and I think that we can't underestimate the fact that the younger generation, like the kids in school right now, are being trained that they can't use AI for certain things. They can't use it for term papers. They can't use it for responding to essay questions. And the teachers have ways of figuring that out. You know, we used to have cliff notes.
They
and
kind
stuff
of
like
really
that,
don't,
so.
though. That's the problem. They don't have the ways of figuring it out. There are tools, they are not good, but that's why they have to ban them from using it, because they often can't tell when it is being used. So, I mean, in our world, not to cut you off, but I think I know where you're going. In our world, it reminds me of, you know, the solution that they used in your XFL draft last night. Walk into the draft room, pencil and paper. That's the only way you can know AI is not in the room with you.
A lot of schools are doing that. If when you go in to write your final, leave your phone at the
Yep.
door, they'll search you, all of these kind of things, because I taught for a while, and this was before AI, but there was all kinds of internet-based cheating going on. And we had, I forget the name of it, but it's a big plagiarizing checker online,
Yeah.
so that if I suspect that this is plagiarized, I run it through the system, and it comes back and says this is 80% plagiarized, and it gives you the sources and all these kind of things. And the kids just got smarter about how to beat it. And there was all kinds of advice going on in their world of online. Oh, here's what you do: just stick in a X every so often or something like that, because it's not good at that yet. And it was an arms race between the students and the machine to try to see who could outsmart the other. I just wanted to get back to the idea of how it's going to affect you guys and me, I guess to a lesser extent, as content creators. Todd mentioned he's on both ends of it, and Ray, so are you. The projection systems seem like they would be the first to fall. That a AI would be meat and potatoes for an AI to organize projections. Are you more worried about losing your spot in the projections business, or about losing your spot in the writing business? Or
Perhaps naively, I'm not terribly worried about either, for one reason, which is the fact that we are a subscription website, and one thing these tools cannot do is penetrate paywall. Now, that's not going to stop people from subscribing to the website, downloading the projections, and then throwing them into the tool, and the tool will get access to them that way. But in terms of protection of our content, you know, in theory, we're in the right in that our content is protected by our subscription wall. And there are multi-billion-dollar lawsuits going on right now where, you know, entities much larger than Baseball HQ are suing, you know, these AI outfits trying to protect that content, because the AI tools have sucked those things in, and they're saying, hey, you were not allowed to do that, we own that content. And, you know, that's good, because, you know, somebody's out there fighting that battle, and it doesn't need to be me, because I don't have the pockets to do that, so that's fine.
I don't think we have anything to worry about when it comes to projections.
They're not any good anyway, right?
They're
Ron?
not anyway. We can't. I mean, for everybody who spends their money to purchase, you know, these projections models to get the best and most accurate projections in the universe, we can't predict the future. We can't. We just, it's, you know, we do the best we can, getting a sense of what the players are going to improve or fall off, but to actually predict the future is not possible, because as soon as Paul Skeens grabs his elbow next May 12th, not wishing it on him, but as soon as that happens, that nobody will have projected, all our projections are out the window. And there's no way I can see that AI can predict that to the level of precision that would allow us to use that information in running our teams. So let it out our projections. Just, you know, let it think that it can do a better job. We've been trying for 40 years to find that holy grail of the system that generates 100% perfect accuracy in our projections, and we're not any closer than we were 40 years ago. It's
Yeah, if that, in some mythical world where that happened, Ron, I think I can speak for you, where you and I would be the first two people to stand up and applaud, right?
Yes.
If somebody burped out the perfect projections, we'd be like, oh my God, what an amazing achievement. We've split the atom.
That's exactly what it would be.
And every draft is a retro draft.
Right.
You know what's happening in
And
the
that's
future.
a good point. That's a good point.
There's still a game to play.
There is still a game to play, because when we do these retro drafts, when we have perfect information as to how these players, the numbers that they're going to put up, someone's still going to end up in last place because you have to know how to construct a roster, you have to know how to value those numbers, and you have to play the game. When we do these retro drafts, it's the perfect environment to show how pointless projections can be. This game, it's just like maybe 20% of the game is the projections, and everything else is what we really enjoy to play these games.
I think the AI might be better equipped than a human being, though, in the context of a auction especially, to run through all of the various permutations. Every time a new player gets purchased and every time money leaves the pool, it looks forward to the next 600 moves like a chess player, or like a chess computer more like, and assesses them all by way of probability. And if you pick up, 0.05 of probability enough times,
Yeah, but
it's quite a benefit.
yeah, but then you have to play 100 drafts to benefit from that, because
Yeah.
in a single draft you're not going to be able to leverage that very much.
I hope you're right.
AI, what kind of ball will we be using next year? I don't hear the answer, so that's what we were talking about before. We should do a retro draft. Get 11 of us together, and get Colette to do AI for the 12th team to make the pick. I wonder.
Yeah, that
A
could be
retro
interesting.
draft, that would be interesting.
That could be interesting.
I say Jason Collette because he gave a session on it, and he's been dabbling with this sort of thing, and that'd be, if there's a strike in the next year, we need something to do. We did these during the COVID year, if you folks may remember.
Retro drafts.
And the strikes. Remember, they used to use
Yeah.
computer like sims to work out how fantasy leagues were going to do.
As a projectionist, I'm not, to get back to the question, I'm not worried about, making better, but I do think that, if you folks outsource your projections and people pay you money, they may not be willing to pay HQ or Gannett money. That's something that can get an AI for just a step down.
Sure.
That's, that I think, so if it's people, that's where I may be, you yourself probably, but if you outsource them,
Yep.
I think
No, that's fair.
something like that.
But it's funny. I still think like the mindset that people have with that still doesn't worry me. Somebody was talking last night, and I say this not to call a person out or anything, but somebody was talking about, I think it was a football example, but they were talking about how they aggregated, 25 different projection systems and threw them into, AI and said, okay, here's my super projection set now, right? And that's something that people have talked about,
That's what Ariel
forever.
does.
That's what Ariel does. But what I'm getting at is, I think what that example resonated with me is what AI can do for you there is explode your denominator, right? You can have, you can just, take all of the spreadsheets, take all of the projections. Like I've done this before, but I do it in a spreadsheet with 3 different models or whatever, right? Because, the limits of A, my time, and B, my computing power, and those sorts of things are going to stop me in fairly ordered.
In ID numbers.
And ID numbers, yeah, exactly. But you go at this thing, can you raise that number to a much larger, pool of data to work with? That does not give you a better product. So, the difference between the 4th projection set and the 40th, nothing's changing. So, when it was my time, that's why I would never do that. But now, even if it's, not my time, it's just AI's time, so what? I'm not worried about that system beating me, because the way you beat somebody is not by my projection system had 41 inputs and yours had 40.
Well, guys, this is something we could probably talk about all day, and I'm sure these people and the people listening at home are getting worried we're going to, so we'll move on. This is Baseball HQ Radio live in Phoenix, Arizona at First Pitch, our annual fantasy baseball conference. It's been a lot of fun. I'm here with Ron Chandler, Ray Murphy, Alex Becky, and Todd Zola, and another discussion in Ray's seminar on Friday evening had to do with the possibility of leagues and game platforms and other interested parties trying to keep AI out of the environment by using rules. And that started me thinking about Ron's book that is coming out soon, a book about rules. What prompted you to start looking at the whole issue of rules in the first place?
Oh, I've always been interested in the rules of this game. I've always wondered that if Dan Enkrent never wrote or came up with the idea for rotisserie baseball, or we lived in a parallel universe, what this game would look like. And at its core, it's just trying to predict what ball players are going to do, but the whole structure of it and everything from the statistics we use to the categories and everything else is pretty much arbitrary. So I thought if we put it all into a big pot and kind of mixed it up and re-engineered it into something else, could we come up with something better or different? And in doing so, maybe figure out some rule tweaks to make our existing leagues better. So at its core, it's we've got free reign, not like the real game. It's in my introduction to this book, there's a paragraph here that I want to read. That when I wrote it, I was like, this is really the core of it. At its core, baseball is a game in which you hit a ball with a stick and then run along a circuitous route, touching predefined interim destination points until you're caught by the defense or complete a full revolution, whichever comes first. Beyond that, everything is arbitrary. 3 strikes, 4 bases, 3 outs, 9 fielders. It's probably a good bet that some people thought that we needed more bases, fewer fielders, or that the whole ball strike construct was absurd. And when you think about it, it's anything. When you have a core of a concept, you can take it in any number of different paths and get to a different destination. And so that's why I wrote this book, and that's basically what it does. Is break down all the elements of fantasy sports for baseball, football, basketball, and hockey, and figure out what are the different variables that we can change, and how can we re-engineer these variables into different experiences for us.
I've always thought that that rules are kind of evolutionary. Like they change a rule, and if it doesn't work out, they change it back, and keep doing that in a sort of a dynamic, almost biological way, and that's pretty interesting. But one of the great debates about rules is whether, when, and how they need to be changed. How do you decide those things? Todd, you've been on the board of Tout Wars for a long time, and every year you guys solicit requests, suggestions, demands from the players about rules that they'd like to see changed. And I'm wondering what your philosophy is, from having done that for so long and having played games for so long, about changing the rules in a fantasy baseball league.
So we'll take Tout Wars out for a second, bring it back in. This is kind of cliche at this point, but I don't know that there's a one-size-fits-all. If you got a 12-person league or 15-person league, the best set of rules is the one which the enjoyment of those 12 or 15 or 10, whatever people enjoy it the most. And there may be some rules that are more popular across all these different leagues, but one league may want to do something that another league finds is stupid. So I think that's, there's no sort of dumb rules. It's sometimes tough to get that many people together that happen to enjoy that set of rules. That's what you talk about guide rails before. Guardrail, it's usually there, it's very infrequent that you're pressing enough to put it there. It's put there because something bad happened, and you know what? We need a guardrail there. So I don't know if you want to go through that with AI. That's a different story. But so the best set of rules is the one that everybody agrees with the most and has the most fun. It's the most fairest, and most importantly, is the most enjoyable to play the game. We did the XFL. It took us a little while, but everybody agrees we got a heck of a set of rules right now. We weren't there at the beginning, but we changed this, let's change that salary, this, tweak it, add another team, and I think we're pretty happy. Now, Tout Wars brings in a completely different sort of mindset. Is we've got, we deal with the public. We need to be we have an audience. We want to be innovative, and we were the first 5x5, first OBP, first to have a swingman, first to have midweek, all these innovations, but yet we still need to be relatable. So it's an ongoing topic right now. AI, it's an ongoing topic right now, the balance between relatable and innovative. And I think there is a balance to be found. I don't think it's one or the other. I think, especially when you have 7 leagues. But as far as the rules, whatever the league is fairest, whatever you think is the best. One of the other cliche you'll hear some of us say is, I don't care, just tell me the rules and I'll figure it out. I think there's some people like that, but I also think there are, even if you say that, there are some sets of rules that you would find to be more entertaining, along with entertaining / fair. Which you think is more important? I guess it depends if there's entry fee or you're just having fun.
I think a lot of times there's a changing environment in the sport itself that you often want to respond to. And when rotisserie baseball first started, 14 batters and 9 pitchers was what major league teams did. It mimicked reality. Now it doesn't, and each league has to decide whether they're going to stick with what the original rules were and play around the limitations that causes, or change the rules of the league to better reflect what Major League Baseball is doing. And I think a lot of rule changes are based upon changing conditions that we need to respond to.
Yeah, one thing I think about a lot, I was just talking with a buddy of mine who's out here, is actually a guy I went to college with, and we've been playing in a scorchy league since like just after college, with a bunch of college guys and guys we've known for a very long time. And it's a really, to us, it's a really fun league because it keeps us in touch and all those sorts of things. But the thing about it that I really like from a rules perspective, and it's a credit to the score sheet game, which you guys all know and has been around forever and I love. But when we were in college, just out of college and all single and starting out, this league was like maniacally cutthroat and all kinds of trash talking, and we were all super duper engaged, and there were 30-player trades going on, and everyone was just working every last edge in this league, putting just gobs of time into it. Fast forward 25 years, we're all middle-aged with wives, kids, jobs, all these sorts of things, and the league's on autopilot. Like, we could barely manage to get through an online draft in March, over the course of a month without like rolling back multiple picks because somebody forgot to set a list or whatever. It's now like the lowest maintenance thing going. But we joke all the time that give us another 20 years when we're all retired, and like we're gonna go back when we were in our 20s, and we're gonna be like going at each other hardcore and scratching every itch, exploring every edge, because we'll have time to do it again. I bring this up because having a good game engine that allows you to swing from one end of that spectrum to the other without the league being decided solely by who works the hardest or who puts in the most time, I think is a critical element of, at least where I am in my life right now, what I'm looking for in a good league, in a good game format.
Well, I am retired, and I can tell you I still don't want to do all that work.
Hey, but we should all be allowed to make those choices, right?
Yeah, I got all the time in the world, and I got better things to do with it. This kind of seems like a pretty interesting spot to just go around the table and say, in general, I know we all have different league formats and stuff, but what's the one rule you think is just overdue for changing? Todd, you played this game forever. What do you hear from Tout Wars, your players in Tout Wars, that sounds like it makes sense?
Well, Ron mentioned the changing of the rosters. One of the, and I like this rule a lot. One of the rules we did in Tout Wars was we took away an outfielder, and you can put an outfielder or a utility or a pitcher. Basically, massage your roster requirements position-wise to better match the, 26 now. Some teams are 13 and 13 or 12 and 14. Allow you to have more pitchers. Don't force it, but allow you to have more pitchers. I think if I were to start a league from scratch, I would make sure that I had some swingman, some positions where you can have both a pitcher and a hitter fill that spot. I mean, is Chris in this? I saw Chris, yeah. I mean, Chris is yawning in the back. We're boring him with this discussion. But he runs the league, and we have a few spots. I don't know if it's from Tout Wars or just because it's smart people to run this league, and they thought it'd be a good idea too. I don't know, is it necessary in a mixed league? I don't care. It still matches what baseball does. So that's the one thing I guess. Other than $100 fab, have $0 bids.
So, talking about how these games have been evolving for a long time. How many years have been around since like sort of 5x5 overcame by 4x4? We've got to be going on 20 years now, right?
The first, more than that. I was tracking back through all of my historical stuff, and the first mention I remember of leagues looking at the runs scored and strikeouts to add to the traditional 4x4 was in 1992.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't really until the late 90s that it started taking over and 4x4 started dropping off.
And I bring it up because now if you look, from our current perspective, if you look back at a 4x4 league, it looks kind of restrictive or simple, or, that was a box that sort of everyone had sort of explored every edge of, right? And 5x5 kind of opened up some new avenues, opened up some new paths. I kind of feel like we need that again. Like, I'm ready for 6x6, and it's a whole other conversation of what 6x6 would be, but I feel like we need more permutations, more combinations, open up some more strategies, throw off the balance. I feel like that would be helpful.
How about 6x6, but only your best 5 scores in the categories?
I'm here to listen to any ideas you have. That one sounds fun.
Yeah. Just off the top of my head. Alex, what rule would you change if they made you the czar of fantasy baseball?
Well, that's a good question, because what Todd said earlier about guardrails, I think most of the rules that we put in with the subscriber leagues have been reactionary. When there's been a repeated violation, somebody keeps going off the road, because we want to make it as creative and fun and competitive as possible and keep pressing those buttons. But we also want to make sure that everybody has a great experience. So one of the problems we had years ago was in auctions, we had the same name. Player, one would be the player that everybody knows who's a highly ranked player, and somebody would be in the minor leagues, and they would be his brother with the same initial or something. So as soon as the first player went, somebody else would bring up the other same name player, and then everybody would hit the buttons, not taking a second to realize that's not the same player. So after this happened for several years, we tried to figure out a creative solution. The solution was that whoever nominates a player gets that player on his roster for the amount of money that went into it. If the rest of the room bid $25, then the player who mistakenly nominated that player gets that player on his roster for $25 if we have to back up the whole draft to fix it. And we put that out there in the rules before we even started. We reminded everybody. Hasn't happened once since. So I think the best way to do it is find creative solutions that can be fun at the same time, and then implement those to prevent some difficult problems.
Sounds like a variation on a rule that says, okay, anybody who messes up the draft by nominating a guy that they can't have, the other 11 of us are just going to beat the crap out of you.
Yeah.
That would probably have the same effect. It might be more direct.
But we do add in that it's on the commissioner's discretion, and usually the commissioner just ignores it and says, okay, don't do it again. But, it's nice having it in there when everybody says, well, that wasn't in the Constitution. Well, page 10, there it is.
Well,
10-page Constitution?
Yeah,
Wow.
It's highly produced. The production values of our Constitution are just off the charts.
that's the U.S. Constitution, like 2?
Oh,
Yeah, it didn't have to deal. The Constitution, the U.S. Constitution doesn't deal with FAFSA, so it's fine.
yeah.
Right, it's in the amendments, the Bill of Rights. Well, this has been terrific. We got, I'm sure, somebody coming in behind us, and people have places to go. And I personally want to go and get something to eat. So I really appreciate that you guys took the time to do this. I know Ray especially, you're so busy here running things, and very grateful to you, and to Alex, who's taking pictures of everything that's going on. Todd's always busy with stuff. Ron's retired, and but it still seems to be busier than I am, and I'm retired too. So it's I'm very grateful to each of you. Thanks.
Always a pleasure, PD. Best hour of the week.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Love this. Thanks, PD.
I look forward to reading the AI summary.
And thanks to our audience, too.
Yes,
You guys
thanks
are
to
great.
our audience. If there was about 4 fewer of you, I'd thank you by name. And that's Baseball HQ Radio for Saturday, November the 8th. Thanks very much for taking the time to download and listen to show number 37 of the 2025 fantasy baseball season, our First Pitch Arizona Roundtable edition. I already thanked the guys, so we have our live audience to thank. We also want to thank our podcast audience all over the world. I actually got an email from a guy in Africa once. I really appreciate that you take the time to download the show and listen to it and send your comments. And of course, a special thank you to our audio engineer, James Gale. Who does tremendous work helping us out with this. I'm Patrick Davitt, the host of Baseball HQ Radio. I sure hope to see you on the BaseballHQ.com subscriber forums. Also remember you can stay in contact with Baseball HQ on Facebook and our Twitter feed at BaseballHQ. You can also get your Baseball HQ Radio updates on my personal Twitter feed at Patrick Davitt. That's all you're going to get from me on Twitter anymore. I also have a feed at Blue Sky. It's Patrick Davitt, all one word, at bsky.social. And if you're already on the Blue Sky platform, you can search for me by typing Patrick Davitt, all one word, into the search bar. And if you do so, feel free to give me a follow. I could use some friends. Please tell your friends about Baseball HQ Radio and help new listeners find our podcast by leaving us a good review and a rating where you get your pods. If your pod getter of choice doesn't find Baseball HQ Radio, and that's increasingly rare, please let us know about that or anything else on your mind. You can email us at bhqradio@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back again sometime in early 2026 to start gearing up for another season of fantasy baseball and another season of the podcast with Fantasy Baseball Intelligence for Winners. It is Baseball HQ Radio. Talk with you again next year. And for now, so long.
One more before the lockout.
Thank you, PD. Thanks, Vince.
Thanks, everybody.
It was fun.
Oh.
We didn't get to see the. Hey, buddy. Good to see you. I feel like we. Good to see you, man. You all right?
I don't even think I know.
They're all
Not anymore.
I remember some years ago.
Yeah.
When you said, now wait just a second. And his face just dropped, like, oh my God, what did I say? So, not very much trade sense.
It is, but doesn't.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe. Hey, good, yourself?
Doing great.
Yeah, you wanted to leave it. Did it stay there?
It was there when I checked.
I'm sure you got it.
Well, I had a lot of folks walk up and talk to us about that.
Great.
This year, got a guy who's a really nice guy.
You want next? Yes, sir.
Right on.
He did.
Well, sure, that's fine. Yeah, well, we try. Still, that sounds good.